Hong Shigong held his palm and laughed. This 9-yin manual is really wonderful. My injury was that heavy. I couldn't even exert any strength, yet I achieved success just by one morning exercise. Ouyang Feng was suspicious. He stooped down to examine the broken tree trunks, but what he saw stunned him even more. Apart from the core of the trunk, the outer ring was exceptionally smooth, even smoother than it would be if the trunk was sawed. He thought, could it be that the martial art in the manual is this marvelous? It looks like the old beggar's martial art has been completely restored. How can I fight them if the three of them gang up against me? It's been this far, I'd better start training myself on the martial art from that manual. He cast a glance toward those three and flew back to the cave in a hurry. Immediately he fetched the book Gojing wrote, unwrapped layer upon layer of oil paper bundle and straightway buried his head in the book, diligently studying the manual. Hong Shigong and Gojing waited until they could not see Ouyang Feng's shadow anymore before both of them burst out in laughter. Huang Rong was delighted. "Shifu, this manual is truly wonderful," she said. Hong Shigong laughed without giving her any response. Gojing rushed to her and said, "Wronger, we were only pretending." Then he told her everything they had thought and done. It turned out that Gojing had used his dagger to cut around the trunks, leaving the center part intact. Actually, Hong Shigong's palm did not carry any strength at all. Every time Gojing got hit, he used his own strength to fly backwards and bump into a tree, breaking it down. Ouyang Feng did not know that with the vacant fist energy, the dagger was capable of cutting deep into the bow. Naturally, he did not suspect that the cut was made by the dagger. Huang Rong was laughing hard, but upon hearing Gojing's story she was silent for half a day with a deep frown on her face. Hong Shigong smiled and said, "The old beggar is once again capable of walking on my own feet. It was truly a blessing from heaven. I don't care if it was a true martial art or a fake one." "Wronger, you are afraid the Western poison will see through this deception, aren't you?" Huang Rong nodded. "The old poison has good eyesight," Hong Shigong continued. "How can we fool him that easily? But life is full of uncertainties. Right now it is useless to worry over nothing. Hear me now." Jinger had recited the contents of the manual to me. There is a section which was called Changing Muscle Forging Bones or something. I think it was very interesting. While we don't have anything else to do, why don't we practice it? These words were said with gentleness and indifference, but Huang Rong was aware of the urgency of the situation. What their master had said was very reasonable. Therefore, she said, "Very well, Shifu, please teach us." Hong Shigong asked Gojing to recite the Changing Muscle Forging Bones twice, and then based on that he taught the two on how to practice it. He himself went out hunting or fishing, lighted the fire and cooked their meals. Several times Gojing and Huang Rong offered their help, but every time he shooed them away. Quickly 7 days had passed. Go and Huang had made some progress in terms of their energy cultivation. Inside his cave, Ouyang Feng was also painstakingly studying his manual, putting all his effort in doing so. Toward the evening of the 8th day, Hong Shigong smiled and said, "Wronger, how is your master's roasted wild goat?" Huang Rong smiled but did not say anything. She simply shook her head. Hong Shigong laughed. "I can't eat it myself. You two have finished the first part of your lesson. Today you must rest your muscle and bones, otherwise your chi will be obstructed and you will suffer injury." "All right, Wronger, you prepare our meal tonight. Jinger and I will go and build a raft." Gojing and Huang Rong were astonished. "Building a raft?" "That's right," Hong Shigong said. "Do you want to accompany the old poison on this desolate island forever?" Go and Huang were delighted. They both voiced their agreement, and start to work immediately. The 100 lumbers Gojing cut down the other day were piled neatly on the side. They cut the tree bark and wove them into ropes and tied the lumber together to make the raft. When Gojing used his strength to pull the rope, it snapped and broke. He thought the rope was not made strong enough. He tried pulling another rope, but as soon as he exerted a little strength, it also broke easily. Go Jing was baffled. He stared blankly at the rope and did not know what to do. From the other side of the hill, Huang Rong came shouting with a wild goat in her hands. When going out to hunt for the goat, she carried some pebbles to shoot the goat with. Who would have thought that with only several jumps she had already overtaken the goat? She turned around and grabbed the wild goat. Her body movement was so swift that she surprised even herself. Hong Shigong smiled. So the 9-yin manual is truly a wonderful manual. No wonder countless heroes and warriors were willing to risk their lives for it. Huang Rong was delighted. Shifu, do you think we can beat the old poison now? She asked. Hong Shigong shook his head. Not yet, it is still far from that, he replied. You have to train for another 8 to 10 years. His toad stance is not a small matter. No martial art can break it except Wang Chongyang's solitary yang finger. Huang Rong pouted and said, then even if we train for another 8 to 10 years we may still won't be able to defeat him. Thought's hard to say, Hong Shigong concurred. Perhaps the martial art in that book is fiercer than I thought. Wronger, please be patient, Go Jing said. There is nothing wrong with learning a new skill. A few more days passed. Go Jing and Huang Rong had finished the second part of the changing muscle forging bones. The raft was also ready. The three of them wove a sail from tree barks. They also prepared some fresh water and food on the raft. All along Aoyang Feng was indifferent to what they were doing. He simply watched their activities with a cold look. One evening everything was ready. They planned on sailing the next day. Just before bed that night, Huang Rong asked, do we have to say goodbye to them? Not only that, we must make a 10-year agreement with them, Go Jing answered. They have bullied us so bad, how can we forget it? Huang Rong clapped her hands. Absolutely. I pray to the heaven to bless those 2 thieves that they can go back to the mainland, and also give the old poison 10 more years of life. Otherwise, to restore Shifu's martial art quickly, so that in 1 or 2 years we can look for him. That would be even better. The next day before the crack of dawn, Hong Shigong awoke. Indistinctly he heard some noise from the shore. He quickly called, Jinger, did you hear that noise from the beach? Go Jing got up immediately and jumped down the tree. Once he saw what happened on the beach he could not stop cursing. Immediately he rushed forward to pursue. By this time Huang Rong was also awakened and ran after him, calling out, Brother Jing, what's the matter? Go Jing shouted from a distance, those 2 wicked thieves stole our raft. Hearing this, Huang Rong was shocked. By the time they got to the beach, Aoyang Feng had already carried his nephew on the raft, raised the sail and had already several zhangs away from land. Go Jing was furious. He was about to jump into the ocean to pursue, but Huang Rong pulled his sleeve and said, they are already too far. Aoyang Feng laughed a big laugh. Many thanks for the raft, he shouted. Go Jing stomped his feet in rage. Furiously he kicked a red sandalwood tree nearby. Suddenly Huang Rong got an idea. I got it, she called out. She took a big rock, then placed it on the tree branch. She wanted to use the tree as a slingshot. Pull this tree, she said, we will hurl the rock out. Go Jing was delighted. He braced his legs on the tree root and pulled the trunk backward with all his might. Sandalwood tree was strong but pliable. It bent almost completely down but did not break. Go Jing let his hands go and with a whooshing sound the big rock flew to the sea and fell by the raft side, creating a Shanghai big splash. Pity, Huang Rong called out. She took another rock, aimed carefully and let go. This time the rock hit the raft right on, but the raft construction was too good, it did not break. 2 people launched 3 more rocks, but all of them fell into the water. Seeing all their rocks missed their target, Huang Rong got a crazy idea. Quick, use me as a cannonball, she shouted. Go Jing was startled, unclear of what she meant. Huang Rong explained, hurl me into the sea, I'll deal with them. Go Jing knew her water skill was excellent, her lightness kung fu was excellent too. He saw no danger in complying with her request. He drew his dagger out and put it in her hand. "Be careful," he said. He pulled the tree one more time. Huang Rong sat steadily on the branch and called out, "Fire away!" Go Jing released his grip and Huang Rong's body flew to the sky. She somersaulted twice in the air and plunged into the water several zhangs away from the raft. It was a beautiful scene to behold. Ouyang Feng uncle and nephew were dazzled. They did not know what she was going to do. Huang Rong went deep into the water. She did not emerge from the water, but swam underwater toward the raft instead. Once she saw a black shadow overhead, she knew she had arrived at the bottom of the raft. Ouyang Feng randomly hit the water with the oar, but he could not hit her at all. Huang Rong held up her dagger, ready to sever the rope tying up the wooden raft. But suddenly she came up with a bright idea. She reduced the strength of her hand, only cutting lightly on the ropes, leaving the third part intact, so that the raft would not be disintegrated until the rough waves of the open sea hit it. She turned around and dove away, emerged to the surface about a dozen of zhangs away. She gasped for breath, pretending she could not catch the raft. Ouyang Feng laughed wildly and hoisted the sail. Not too long afterwards the raft had traveled far away. While waiting for her to arrive at the beach, Hong Shigong and Go Jing were cursing incessantly. But they saw Huang Rong's smug expression and were puzzled. After hearing what happened, they were delighted to no end. "Even though we are sending these two wicked men to the bottom of the ocean, we will have to start work from the beginning again," Huang Rong said. 3 people ate their meals with high spirit, then they cut some lumbers again and built another raft. Several days later they were ready, and when the southeast wind blew, they hoisted the tree bark sail, left the island heading to the west. Huang Rong gazed her eyes toward the island, which was getting smaller and smaller. She sighed and said, "Our lives were almost gone on that island. But leaving it today, my heart is filled with sadness. We can always revisit the island in the future," Go Jing said. Huang Rong clapped her hands. "Good. We must come back. When that time comes, you can't go back on your words. But first, let us give this small island a good name. Shifu, what do you think? You crushed that little bastard's legs with a big rock on that island," Hong Shigong said. "Let us call it Crushing Ghost Island. What do you say?" Huang Rong shook her head. "That is not very elegant," she said. "If you want elegance, why did you ask the old beggar in the first place?" Hong Shigong said, "If you ask me, the old poison ate my urine on the island. I'll say we call it Eat Urine Island." Huang Rong smiled while waving her hand. She leaned her head sideways to think. She saw a cluster of red clouds on the horizon, as the bright luster of gems glamorously hovering over the island. "Let's call it Bright Red Cloud Island," she called out. "Not good, not good," Hong Shigong countered. "That was too elegant." Go Jing listened to master and disciple arguing. He smiled and did not say anything. He did not care whether the island had an elegant name or a vulgar name. But deep down in his heart he thought Crushing Ghost or Eat Urine were more interesting than Bright Red Cloud. Carried by the blowing wind they sailed for 2 days. The wind did not change its course. Toward the evening of the third day, Hong Shigong and Huang Rong were asleep while Go Jing was in charge of the rudder for the night. Amidst the ocean breeze and rolling waves, suddenly he heard somebody shout, "Help! Help!" twice. The voice sounded like a clashing cymbal. It could be heard clearly amidst the screaming wind and waves. Hong Shigong sat up and said in a low voice, "That is the old poison." They heard the shout one more time. Huang Rong grabbed Hong Shigong's arm. "It's a ghost, it's a ghost," she said with a trembling voice. It was the end of the 6th month. The night was dark and moonless. There were only several stars scattered sparsely on a dark night. The sea was pitch black. A scream in the middle of the night would make anybody terrified to the bone. "Is that the old poison?" Hong Shigong called out. His internal energy was lost, so his voice did not travel too far. Go Jing gathered the shi on his dantian and called out, "Is that Uncle Ouyang?" From a distance they heard Ouyang Feng answered, "It is me, Ouyang Feng. Help! Huang Rong was still terrified. It doesn't matter whether it is a man or a ghost. Let us just leave, quick. Help him, Hong Shigong suddenly said. No, no. Huang Rong quickly answered, I am scared. It's not a ghost, Hong Shigong said. Even if it is a man we still don't have to help, Huang Rong said. Helping others in distress is one of our beggar clan's rules, Hong Shigong said. You and I are 2 generations of the clan leader. We can't abandon the honorable customs handed down from the previous generation's leaders. The beggar clan's custom is not right, Huang Rong countered. Clearly Aoyang Feng is a scoundrel. When he becomes a ghost, he will still be a scoundrel ghost. It doesn't matter if it is a man or a ghost, we should not help. It is the clan's regulation, we can't change it, Hong Shigong said. In her heart Huang Rong was very angry. They heard Aoyang Feng's voice in the distance again. Shi Zhong, are you really seeing death? Do not help. Huang Rong said, I got it. Brother Jing, wait until you can see Aoyang Feng clearly, then strike him dead with your stick. You are not a beggar clan's member, you don't have to observe this unreasonable rule. Hong Shigong was angry, taking advantage of somebody else's precarious condition. Is that the righteous way of the warrior? Huang Rong did not have any choice. Helplessly she watched Go Jing steer the raft toward the voice. In the deep dark of the night they vaguely saw 2 men on the water rocked by the wave. Next to their heads was a lumber. It looked like after their raft broke Aoyang Feng uncle and nephew had clung onto that piece of lumber until now. Let him make an oath never to harm anybody else, then we will rescue him, Huang Rong said. Hong Shigong sighed, you don't know the old poison's character. He would rather die than surrender. He won't make this kind of promise. Jinger, rescue them. Go Jing bent down and grabbed Aoyang Kan's collar, lifting him up to the raft. Hong Shigong was eager to help and he forgot his martial art was gone. He held out his hand and Aoyang Feng took it. He wanted to borrow the strength and leap to the raft. But because of his pull Hong Shigong unexpectedly fell into the sea with a splash. Go Jing and Huang Rong were shocked. They jumped into the sea immediately and saved Hong Shigong. Huang Rong angrily scolded Aoyang Feng, my Shifu has a good heart rescuing you. How could you drag him into the sea instead? Aoyang Feng knew Hong Shigong had lost his martial art. Otherwise, how could this simple pull make a martial art expert fall into the sea? But he had been immersed in the water for several days, he was extremely weary. He did not dare to look up, he lowered his head and said, I did not mean to. Shi Zhong, please don't blame your brother. Hong Shigong laughed heartily, well said, well said. Only the old beggar's real skill is known to you now, he said. Good miss, Aoyang Feng said, could you spare something for us to eat? We have been hungry for several days. Huang Rong replied, we have food and water on this raft enough only for 3 people. I can give you some, but then what do we eat? Very well, Aoyang Feng said, please give a little bit of food to my nephew then, his legs are heavily injured, he won't survive without food. In that case let's make a deal, Huang Rong said, your viper hurt my Shifu. He has not recovered until now. Give him the antidote. Aoyang Feng groped his pocket and produced 2 vials, handed them over to her and said, Miss, please take a look. The vials were drowned in the water, the antidote has been washed out clean. Huang Rong took the vials, she shook them and sniffed them. The vials were really filled with seawater. In this case, tell us the prescription of the antidote, as soon as we are ashore we can brew some. If I want to swindle you, I can always give you any prescription, you won't know if it is genuine or fake. But how can Aoyang Feng be this kind of person? Aoyang Feng said, let me tell you the truth, my vipers are the most poisonous in the world, nothing can match its lethality. If one is bitten, although one won't immediately die due to one's excellence in martial art, within 8 times 8, 64 days half of one's body will be paralyzed and one will be invalid for the rest of one's life. I have no problem giving you the antidote prescription, but not only the ingredients are hard to find, but it also requires processing of 3 successive winters and summers. By the time the antidote is ready, I am afraid it would be much too late. I have told you the truth. If you still want to take my life, it is entirely up to you." Huang Rong and Go Jing listened to him. They secretly admired him. They thought, although this man is evil and cruel, he did not lose his dignity as a grand master of his martial arts school in a matter of life and death. Wronger, Hong Shigong also said, "He is telling the truth. A man's life has been decided by fate. The old beggar has nothing to be worried about. You give them something to eat." Huang Rong's heart was secretly crushed. She knew her master would not recover from his injury. Silently she took a roasted wild goat leg and tossed it toward Ao Feng. Ao Feng tore some meat for his nephew first before he took a big bite and chewed the meat. Huang Rong coldly said, "Uncle Ao, you have injured my master. In the second sword meet of Mount Hua you will be the winner among the heroes. Let me congratulate you first." "That is not necessarily true," Ao Feng replied. "There is at least one person in this whole wide world who can heal Shi Zhong's injury." Go Jing and Huang Rong jumped in shock so that the raft was leaning to one side. They both asked in unison, "Is that true?" While biting the mutton leg, Ao Feng said, "Only it is very difficult to ask this person to help. Your Shifu also knows about it." Two people's eyes turned to their master. Hong Shigong smiled. "You know it is difficult, why did you say it?" Huang Rong pulled her master's sleeve, asking for an explanation. "Shifu, tell us. Even if it is difficult, we still have to try. I will ask my father to help, surely he'll find a way." Ao Feng softly snorted. "What are you snorting about?" Huang Rong said. Ao Feng did not answer. Hong Shigong said, "He was laughing at you to think your father is all-powerful. But that person is really not a small matter. How could your father make that person help?" Huang Rong was astonished. "That person? Who is that person?" Hong Shigong continued, "Let's not talk about that person's high level of martial arts skill. Even if he is so weak that he can't even kill the chicken, the old beggar will never harm others to benefit my own self." Huang Rong hesitantly said, "High level of martial arts skill? Ah! I know. He is the Southern Emperor, Emperor Duan. Shifu, let's ask him to heal your injury. How does that harm others to benefit yourself? Go sleep. Don't ask any more questions. I prohibit you from bringing this matter up anymore. Understand?" Hong Shigong said. Huang Rong did not dare to say anything. She was afraid Ao Feng might steal their food, so she leaned against the food bucket and sleep. Waking early the next morning, Huang Rong looked at Ao Feng uncle and nephew. She jumped in fright, because the complexions of those two were very pale, their whole bodies swollen from being under seawater these past several days. The raft was sailing until about 4 p.m. when they saw a dark line in the distance. It appeared to be land. Go Jing was the first to jump up and shout in delight. A time needed to eat a bowl of rice later they could see clearer. It was indeed land. The sea was calm, the sun was shining brightly, scorching those people, making them miserable. Ao Feng suddenly stood up. He swayed his body a little bit and stretched out his hands, grabbing both Go Jing and Huang Rong. With the tip of his foot he also kicked and sealed Hong Shigong's acupoint. Go and Huang were taken up by surprise. Their vital acupoints were sealed. Immediately half of their bodies were numb. Startled they asked, "What are you doing?" Ao Feng grinned avidly, but did not say anything. Hong Shigong sighed. The old poison is very conceited. He is not willing to accept others' mercy. We have saved his life. If he did not kill his saviors, how can his heart be at peace? I can only blame my own benevolence of heart, rescuing others in the middle of the night, forgetting this fact, that now I endanger the lives of these two weary kids. You knew it very well, Ao Feng said. Also the 9-yin manual is in my hand. If I leave a copy in this boy surnamed Go's mind, I will only invite infinite misfortune for myself. Hearing him mentioning the 9-yin manual, Hong Shigong's heart was stirred. With a loud voice he recited, Nuerki Liu, Hogwer, Ningzi Kika, Ping Daoer. Aoang Feng was startled. He recognized the sentence to be the one among hundreds of difficult sentences he did not know the meaning of. Listening to Hong Shigong recited it, he thought Hong Shigong understood the meaning. He thought, there are many strange sentences in the manual. There must be a key to unlock its secret. If I kill these 3, I am afraid there is nobody else in this world who understands it. Then my taking possession of the manual will be in vain. Therefore, he asked, what does it mean? Hong Shigong replied, Han Hua Cha Cha, Zhu General Kshu Batu, Mir. Even though he had listened to Go Jing reciting the strange sentences of the manual, how could he memorize everything? He was just talking nonsense, but his face showed a deep veneration. Aoang Feng actually thought the sentences carried a very profound meaning. He focused his attention and thought deeply. Hong Shigong shouted, Jinger, now! Go Jing pulled back his left hand, sent out his right palm while his left leg flew forward simultaneously. Actually, when Aoang Feng sent out his kick and launched a surprise attack, his vital IQ point was grabbed and he was unable to move, but Hong Shigong had talked nonsense and confused Aoang Feng, causing him to lose his concentration and thus slightly loosen his grip. Go Jing grabbed this opportunity to free himself and launched a counterattack. Go Jing had trained the changing muscle forging bones to the second stage. Although he did not learn any new fist of kick techniques, his original strength was actually increased by at least 20. This one pull, one palm and one kick were executed without any extraordinary move, but the force within his attack was unexpectedly very strong. Aoang Feng was taken by surprise. Besides, the raft was narrow, there was no space to withdraw. He was forced to raise his hand to fend off, but his grip on Huang Rong did not loosen up. Go Jing's fist and palm went out one after another, attacking the enemy like a violent storm. He was well aware that on this narrow raft, if he ever let Aoang Feng attack with his toad stance, then all 3 of them would be dead without any burial grounds. This flurry of attacks forced Aoang Feng to withdraw half a step. Huang Rong leaned sideways slightly, baring her shoulder to bump Aoang Feng's body. Aoang Feng was secretly amused. He thought, this little girl wants to bump me. Just how much skill does she think she has? Don't blame me if I bump you clear to the ocean. He had just finished his thought when Huang Rong's shoulder arrived. Aoang Feng did not evade nor try to parry. He appeared not to pay any attention. But suddenly he felt pricking pain on his chest. Out of pain he realized immediately that she was wearing the Peach Blossom Island's treasure, the soft hedgehog armor. By now he was already at the edge of the raft, so he could not go back even for half a step. Her armor was full of sharp needles, which he could not deal with. Hence, hastily his left hand let go of her vital IQ point and flung her to the side. Huang Rong did not have any space to set her foot on. She was going to fall into the water. Go Jing reached behind his back and grabbed her, while his left hand was still attacking the enemy. Huang Rong drew out her dagger and rushed forward to attack. Aoang Feng stood by the edge of the raft. The water kept splashing his legs. But no matter how hard Go Jing and Huang Rong attacked, they were not able to force him to fall into the water. Hong Shigong and Aoang Ke were unable to move. Both of them helplessly watched the ferocious fight. Their hearts were thumping madly, watching the evenly matched fight, where the difference between life and death was just as narrow as a strand of hair's width. They were both bitterly wishing they could help their side. Aoang Feng's martial art was actually far above Go and Huang's combined power, but he was immersed in the water for several days. Almost half of his strength was gone. Although Huang Rong's martial art was not too high, she was wearing the soft hedgehog armor, plus her hand was holding a sharp dagger. These 2 offensive and defensive weapons were enough to give Aoang Feng some headache. On top of that, Go Jing's 18 dragon subduing palms, his 72 stances of vacant fist, mutual hands combat technique, as well as recently trained changing muscles forging bones from the 9-yin manual combined together had made him a formidable opponent. These three people were engaged in a close fight on the raft. After a while Ouyang Feng's palm was getting stronger. Go and Huang started to fall under his attack. Hong Shigong was very anxious watching this fierce battle. Amidst the dancing palm shadow, Ouyang Feng's left leg kicked out with a strong gust of wind. Huang Rong did not dare to parry and was forced to somersault, and she fell into the water. Suddenly facing a strong enemy alone, Go Jing was feeling strained. Luckily, after falling into the water on the left side of the raft, Huang Rong swam across the bottom of the raft and rebounded from the right side and swept her dagger toward Ouyang Feng's chest. Now Ouyang Feng had to face enemies on both sides. While fighting courageously, Huang Rong secretly thought of plans to overcome this situation. If this fight continues, our martial arts are still inferior to his. In the end we will fall under his hands. The only way to defeat him is underwater. As soon as this thought entered her mind, she swept her dagger out and cut the sail rope. The sail immediately fell down. The raft, now carried by the waves, no longer moved forward. Huang Rong drew back 2 steps, wrapped the rope several times on Hong Shigong's body, and then again several turns on a lumber from the raft, making 2 tight knots. As Huang Rong left the battle, Go Jing was not able to withstand the enemy much longer. He managed to block 3 successive stances, but the 4th stance forced him to step backward. Ouyang Feng did not want to let him go. His palms continuously attacked. Go Jing was forced to step backward again. With fish jumping out of the abyss, he managed to block another stance, but for the next stance he was forced to move back again, that his left foot stepped on an empty air. In this critical time he did not get nervous. His right foot immediately flew forward to block the enemy from attacking further. As a result, smash! He also fell into the water. The raft was being rocked hard. Huang Rong took this opportunity to also leap onto the sea. 2 people pushed and pulled the raft, trying to overturn it. They knew Ouyang Ke would be drowning to his death. Also, in the water Ouyang Feng was not their match. Hong Shigong's body was tied to the raft. These 2 people took a risk by dealing with the Western poison first before trying to save their master.